Tonight, we enter the shadows of feudal Japan once more as we stealthily traverse the dangerous world of Tenchu. And if you find that this deadly tale resonates with your inner shinobi, please feel free to leave a like and consider subscribing for more content like this. It helps ensure that this video doesn't get banished into another realm alongside Lord Mayo. I would appreciate it, but for now, sip some herbal tea and get cozy as we embark on another deadly mission into the world of Tenchu. Blood pooled beneath the body of Lord Goda's chief advisor, Masanobu, spreading across the tatami mats like spilled ink. The full moon cast long shadows through the open window, illuminating the corpse in pale light. His throat had been cut with surgical precision, a single stroke that had nearly severed his head. Guard Captain Tadao rushed into the chamber, drawn by the wet gurgling that had momentarily broken the night's silence. He froze at the doorway, his eyes widening at the scene before him. Movement by the window caught his attention. A figure perched on the sill, silhouetted against the moon. The assassin wore shinobi attire, his silver-white hair visible even in the dim light. A bloodied blade glinted in his hand. "Don't move, assassin," Tadao shouted, drawing his sword. The assassin turned slightly, his single visible eye reflecting moonlight like a wolf's. Then he was gone, leaping from the window into the darkness below. Tadao rushed forward, leaning out just in time to see the assassin land in a courtyard 4 stories below, rolling to absorb the impact before sprinting toward the outer wall. "Sound the alarm," he bellowed to the guards below. "Rikimaru of the Azuma has murdered Lord Masanobu." "This is absurd," Ayami said, her voice low but sharp as she knelt beside Rikimaru in Lord Goda's private chamber. "We would never betray you, my lord." The young lord of the Goda province sat rigidly before them, his face a mask of controlled turmoil. Dark circles beneath his eyes betrayed his sleepless night. 4 guards stood at attention behind him, hands resting on sword hilts. "3 of my advisors murdered in as many weeks," Lord Goda said, his voice strained. "Each killing bearing the mark of the Azuma clan. Captain Tadao himself saw Rikimaru fleeing the scene last night, while a witness to Sekia's murder has come forward claiming he was killed by a kunoichi." His gaze hardened, sweeping between the duo. Rikimaru maintained his composure, eyes fixed on the floor before him. "My lord, I was monitoring the border near Kawagwe last night. The Isaku clan has been unusually active, and I was gathering intelligence in the port town," Ayame added. Lord Goda waved dismissively. "And who would vouch for shadows who pride themselves on never being seen?" He sighed heavily. "I have always trusted the Azuma with my life. My father trusted your master before you. Yet the evidence against you mounts with each killing." Rikimaru finally raised his eyes. "My lord, someone is clearly attempting to frame us. Grant us 3 days to uncover the truth." Lord Goda's jaw tightened. "The council is demanding your immediate arrest. Lords from neighboring provinces whisper that I have lost control of my own assassins. He lowered his voice. You have until sunrise tomorrow to bring me proof of your innocence, or I must yield to the council's demands. One day is not enough time, Ayami protested. It must be, Lord Goda replied. The fourth and final member of my council, Lord Takahashi, must be protected. I've moved him to the sanctuary at Mount Kurama with my best guards. He looked between them, conflict evident in his eyes. If you are innocent as you claim, find me proof before dawn. If you fail, or if Takahashi dies, I will have no choice but to order your execution. As they rose to leave, Lord Goda spoke once more. Rikimaru, Ayame, I pray to the gods that my faith in you is not misplaced. Outside the castle walls, the two ninjas disappeared into the shadows of a narrow alley. We're being hunted by our own allies, Ayame said, checking her twin blades. This is someone's very elaborate game. Rikimaru nodded, his expression grim. We separate. Cover more ground. I'll investigate Masanobu's murder scene while the evidence is fresh. I'll work my contacts in the town, Ayame said. Someone must have seen something unusual. The shadow arts leave traces that ordinary eyes miss. But my informants are far from ordinary. Rikimaru gripped her shoulder briefly. Be vigilant. Whoever is behind this knows our methods, our strengths, and our weaknesses, Ayame finished. Stay alive, brother. I'd hate to have to avenge you. A ghost of a smile crossed Rikimaru's face. Likewise. Then he was gone, scaling the castle wall without a sound, leaving Ayami to disappear into the bustling morning crowds of the town below. Rikimaru moved through the castle like a phantom, evading patrols with ease. The guards were alert but predictable, their patterns unchanged despite the recent murders. A fatal flaw in their security, one that someone else had clearly exploited. Masanobu's chambers remained undisturbed, sealed by Lord Goda's orders for investigation. Blood had dried to a rusty brown on the tatami, the metallic scent still hanging in the air. He knelt beside the large stain, examining it without touching. The cut had been clean, a single stroke with a sharp blade. But something was wrong. The blood pattern showed minute spattering inconsistent with a simple throat slash. Rikimaru narrowed his eyes. The killer had extracted something from the body after death. A soft footfall in the corridor outside sent Rikimaru into the shadows behind a screen. The door slid open to reveal Captain Tadao, accompanied by an older man in the robes of a court physician. See for yourself, Hisoka, Tadao said, just as I described. The physician knelt gingerly beside the bloodstain, careful not to touch it. And you're certain it was Rikimaru? White hair, grey stealth suit, that distinctive blade of his. The izayoi glints like no other weapon I've seen. Rikimaru's hand instinctively moved to the hilt of his sword. The izayoi was unique, a blade forged to slay demons, but he'd never drawn it near Masanobu. The council is meeting now to demand their arrest, Tadao continued. Lord Goda can't protect them much longer. And what of the marks? The physician asked. Tadao lowered his voice. 3 advisors, 3 marks carved into their flesh. Lord Goda has forbidden discussion of it. Rikimaru's jaw tightened. This was new information. Marks carved into the victims. He needed to see the bodies. The morgue attendant reported something unusual, the physician said hesitantly. A residue on the wounds. a black crystalline substance. Poison? No. The physician looked troubled. Something else. I've sent samples to the monastery scholars. As they left, he emerged from hiding. This changed everything. He moved to the window where he had supposedly escaped. No rope marks on the sill, no scuffing where a grappling hook might have caught. Whoever, or whatever, had killed Masanobu had made a clean 4-story drop without assistance. The castle bells began to toll, signaling the changing of the guard. Rikimaru slipped out the window, but instead of dropping to the courtyard, he climbed upward toward the roof. The castle morgue was in the east wing, and he needed to see those bodies before sunset. As he climbed, a sudden chill washed over him, the unmistakable feeling of being watched. He froze, scanning the rooftops. Nothing moved against the afternoon sky, yet the sensation persisted. Whatever was hunting them knew he was here. Ayame slipped through the crowded marketplace, her usual attire replaced by a simple peasant's kimono. Her hair was bound up, a plain cloth concealing her distinctive style. Only her eyes remained unchanged, sharp, observant, missing nothing. She paused at a tea vendor's stall, purchasing a steaming cup with a few copper coins. The old woman serving her nodded almost imperceptibly, sliding a folded paper beneath the cup. "Strange times," the old woman murmured. "The shadows have shadows these days." Ayame took the tea and moved on, finding a quiet corner where she could read the note. It contained only an address and a time. The abandoned bathhouse at sunset. 3 hours to kill. She made her way toward the docks, where her second informant worked loading cargo. The port town buzzed with unusual activity. Too many samurai from neighboring provinces. Too many strangers with concealed weapons. "Looking for work, pretty one?" a gruff voice called out. A burly dock worker grinned at her, revealing several missing teeth. "I'm looking for Toru," she replied quietly. The man's expression changed subtly. "Haven't seen him in 2 days. Supposed to work the Nagasaki shipment. Never showed." Ayame felt a chill. Toru had been her most reliable informant for years. Any idea where he might be? The dock worker glanced around nervously. There have been disappearances. Street folk, beggars, the occasional drunk no one would miss. Toru was asking questions about it. He leaned closer. The night before he vanished, he mentioned seeing foreigners meeting with men bearing the Isaku clan crest. The Isaku, the same clan Rikimaru had been monitoring. Lord Goda's most persistent rival, ruled by Lord Hiroaki Isaku, a man rumored to dabble in foreign mysticism and forbidden arts. When exactly was this meeting? 3 nights ago, the same night Lord Goda's second advisor was found with his throat cut. The man straightened as a port official walked past. "That's all I know. Best you forget Toru and watch your own neck." Ayame moved on, processing this information. 3 murders, 3 nights when both she and Rikimaru had alibis, albeit ones they couldn't prove. The timing of the Isaku clan's activities couldn't be coincidental. As dusk approached, She made her way to the abandoned bathhouse. The building stood dilapidated at the edge of town, its wooden structure rotting from years of neglect. She entered through a broken window, landing silently in what had once been the changing area. "You're either brave or foolish to come alone," a voice spoke from the shadows. Ayame didn't flinch. "Speak quickly, Kagemi. I'm short on time and patience." A figure emerged from the darkness, a woman with a scarred face, dressed in the plain clothes of a temple servant. The Isaku have recently become a very popular topic of conversation, particularly regarding certain skills only their clan possesses. What skills? Blood magic, ancient techniques for creating doppelgängers. The informant approached slowly. 3 nights ago, I was tending the shrine near the eastern forest. I saw something unnatural, a ritual being performed in the clearing where the old oak stands. "Who performed this ritual?" Ayame asked. "Men in Isaku colors, led by a figure in a crimson robe." Her voice dropped to a whisper. "They had a prisoner, a kunoichi they'd captured from some minor clan. They did something to her. Her screams became yours. Her face shifted and changed until becoming your mirror image." Ayame's blood went cold. A doppelganger ritual? That's impossible. Such techniques were forbidden centuries ago. Not impossible, merely forgotten by most. Kagemi pulled something from her sleeve, a small paper charm covered in strange symbols. This was left behind. I recognized some of the markings from the temple archives, blood magic mixed with something foreign, Western symbols. "Where is this doppelganger now?" Ayame demanded. "I don't know, but there's more." Kagemi looked genuinely afraid now. "The ritual requires a power source. For each shadow duplicate created, a specific death is needed. Not just any killing, but the extraction of specific organs marked with ritual symbols." "The advisors," Ayame whispered. "One more is needed to complete whatever they're planning. The final advisor." "Lord Takahashi," she breathed. "He's being protected at Mount Kurama." Kagemi handed her the charm. "They won't need to find him. They already know where he is. The monk who delivered the message about his safe location. I found his body behind the temple this morning. They're moving tonight." Ayame turned to leave, but Kagemi caught her arm. "Be careful. These doppelgangers aren't just lookalikes. They possess shadow fragments of your own skills, your techniques, and they cannot be reasoned with. They exist only to complete their purpose." "Which is?" "To destroy the Azuma clan and everything it protects," Kagemi replied grimly. "Ending with Lord Goda himself." The castle morgue reeked of death and preservation herbs, the air thick and stifling. Rikimaru moved silently past the elderly attendant who had dozed off at his desk, slipping into the room where the bodies were kept. 3 covered forms lay on stone slabs. He approached the newest, Masanobu's corpse, and carefully pulled back the shroud. The advisor's face was frozen in an expression of surprise, his throat gaping open. But it was the mark on his chest that drew his attention, a complex symbol carved into the flesh over his heart, the edges blackened as if burned. Rikimaru examined the other 2 bodies, finding identical marks in the same location. The symbols were unfamiliar, not Japanese, not Chinese, but something altogether foreign. Each wound contained traces of black crystalline residue, just as the physician had mentioned. He scraped a small amount of the substance into a cloth pouch, then carefully examined the cut patterns. The technique was familiar, disturbingly so. The precision, the angle of the blade. It mirrored his own killing style, honed through years of assassination work for Lord Goda. A soft noise from outside the storage room alerted him. Rikimaru quickly replaced the shrouds and concealed himself behind a stack of preservation crates. The door opened to admit two figures, a castle guard and a robed man he didn't recognize. "Hurry," the guard whispered. "No one can know we've been here." The robed man approached Masanobu's body, pulling back the shroud. He produced a small brush and inkstone, beginning to trace additional lines onto the symbol carved in the advisor's chest. "Is it working?" the guard asked nervously. "The rituals proceed as planned," the robed man replied, his accent strange. "Lord Isaku will be pleased. 3 bindings complete, 1 remaining. And the shadow warriors? Perfect replicas in every way." The man smiled coldly. "The blood magic binds them to our will. The real Azuma ninjas will be executed for treason, and their shadows will serve us thereafter." Rikimaru's hand tightened on his sword. Doppelgängers, created through forbidden blood magic. It explained how he could have been seen killing Masanobu while he was miles away. The robed man finished his work, the modified symbol now glowing with a faint crimson light. "The binding is strengthened. By dawn tomorrow, Lord Takahashi's death will complete the ritual, and the shadow vessels will be permanent." "What about Lord Goda?" the guard asked. "Once his last advisor falls and the Azuma are eliminated, he will be vulnerable. Lord Isaku's forces are already in position to strike." The robed man covered the body. "Now we must..." He stopped suddenly, his head tilting as if listening. "We're not alone." The guard drew his sword. "Impossible. I secured the area myself." The robed man raised his hand, muttering words in a language Rikimaru didn't recognize. A pulse of energy spread through the room, rattling the preservation jars and sending a wave of nausea through Rikimaru's body. "Azuma," the man hissed. "He's here." Rikimaru abandoned stealth, drawing the izayoi in one fluid motion. The blade hummed faintly as it cut through the air, its edge glowing with a subtle blue light, reacting to the dark magic permeating the room. The guard charged, but Rikimaru sidestepped, delivering a precise strike that sent the man crumpling to the floor. The robed man backed away, drawing symbols in the air that left trailing lines of red light. "Your interference changes nothing," he said, his voice distorting unnaturally. "The shadows have already been released. Even now, your double approaches Mount Kurama." Rikimaru lunged forward, but the man completed his gesture, and a barrier of crimson energy flared between them. Izayoi struck the barrier, sending sparks cascading across the room. The sword's glow intensified, fighting against the foreign magic. Behind the barrier, the robed man's features began to shift and blur. "Lord Isaku has studied your clan for years, Azuma. Your techniques, your weapons, your weaknesses. Did you think shadow binding rituals were unique to Japan? The West has its own versions, cruder perhaps, but effective when combined with Eastern precision." The barrier pulsed, pushing the ninja back in a flash of light. When Rikimaru's sight returned, the robed man was gone, and there was no time for pursuit. He needed to reach Mount Kurama before his doppelganger killed Lord Takahashi. As he escaped through the castle's water drainage system, a disturbing thought formed. If his double possessed his skills and knowledge, how could he hope to defeat what was essentially himself? Night shrouded Mount Kurama as Ayami raced up the winding path toward the sanctuary. The temple complex sat nestled among ancient cedar trees, its walls visible only in glimpses through the thick forest. Normally the climb would take hours, but she moved urgently, using the trees as stepping stones. Something was wrong. The forest was too quiet. No birds, no sounds of the temple's evening bells. As she neared the outer walls, the smell hit her. Blood, fresh and abundant. She scaled the wall silently, dropping into the courtyard beyond. Bodies of Goda's guards lay scattered across the stone pavement, their throats cut with surgical precision. No signs of struggle, no defensive wounds. They'd never seen their attacker coming. Moving from shadow to shadow, she approached the main temple building. The doors stood partially open, a thin trail of blood leading inside. She drew her twin blades and slipped through the gap. More bodies within, monks this time, cut down while preparing the evening meal. The killing had been methodical, efficient, exactly as she would have done it. A faint sound from deeper in the temple caught her attention, metal scraping against stone. Ayame followed it to the meditation hall, where the shrine to Buddha dominated the far wall. The golden statue gleamed in the dying light, filtering through paper windows. There, kneeling before the shrine, was Lord Takahashi. His back was to her, his head bowed as if in prayer. Relief washed over her. She wasn't too late. "Lord Takahashi," she called softly. "We must leave immediately. Your life is in danger." The advisor didn't move. "My lord?" Ayame stepped closer, suddenly wary. Lord Takahashi's body toppled sideways, revealing the gaping wound in his chest. The ritual symbol had been carved there, just like the others. His vacant eyes stared at nothing, his mouth frozen in a silent scream. He died quickly, if that's any consolation. The voice, her voice, came from behind the Buddha statue. A figure stepped out from the shadows, and Ayame found herself staring at her own face. The doppelganger wore her exact features like an ill-fitting mask. Everything perfect yet subtly wrong. Its movements reflected her own fighting stance, twin blades identical to hers, dripping with fresh blood. "What are you?" Ayame demanded, circling slowly to her right. The creature smiled, mirroring her own confident smirk. "I am superior. Your skills without your weaknesses. Your techniques without your hesitation." It matched her movement perfectly, maintaining the distance between them. "Lord Isaku sends his regards." Ayami attacked, her blades a blur as she executed a complex striking pattern taught to her by Master Shiunsai himself. The doppelganger countered with the same technique, their blades meeting in a shower of sparks. "Every move you know," the creature spat, its voice a disturbing echo of her own. "Every technique you've mastered, every secret of the Azuma, all mine now." They exchanged a flurry of blows, neither gaining advantage. Ayami broke away, breathing hard. This was impossible. Fighting herself was like trying to defeat her own shadow. She needed to change tactics. "If you have my memories," Ayami said, "then you know the Azuma code." We serve honor and justice. We protect the innocent. I have your techniques, not your weakness of spirit, the impostor replied. The ritual that created me stripped away such useless sentiments. It attacked again, driving her back toward the altar. She deflected a slash aimed at her throat, countering with a kick that her double easily avoided. The ritual requires 4 deaths, Ayami said, remembering Kagami's words. 4 advisors to bind 4 shadows, but there are only 2 of us, you and your Rikimaru. The doppelganger hesitated for a fraction of a second, enough for Ayami to spot an opening. She drove one blade forward, scoring a shallow cut across the creature's ribs. It hissed in pain, black fluid seeping from the wound. What makes you think there are only 2? It snarled, launching a renewed assault. This time, it used techniques Ayami had never seen, combinations of her style with movements that seemed to defy natural human limits. Its blades became almost invisible, cutting through her defenses to slice her arm and shoulder. Staggering back, Ayami realized the truth. The doppelganger wasn't limited to copying her. It was evolving, improving upon her techniques with each exchange. The creature sensed her realization and smiled. The ritual will be complete when the sun rises. Lord Goda will die by Rikimaru's hand, or rather, by his shadow's hand, and both of you will be executed for treason. Ayame noticed something as the impostor spoke. The wound she'd inflicted was not healing, the black fluid continuing to seep. The creature was powerful but not invulnerable. She feigned a stumble, allowing the doppelganger to press its advantage. As it lunged for the killing blow, Ayami dropped completely to the floor, rolling beneath its guard and coming up behind it. Before it could turn, she slashed at the back of its knees, severing tendons. The creature shrieked, a sound no human throat could make, and collapsed. Ayami didn't hesitate, driving both blades into its back where the heart would be. The impostor convulsed, its body twisting unnaturally. Its face began to shift and melt, features running like wax as it lost cohesion. The black fluid spread across the floor, hissing where it touched stone. "This changes nothing," it gasped, its voice distorting. "The others still hunt. The ritual advances. Lord Isaku has opened doors that cannot be closed." Ayami watched grimly as the creature dissolved into a puddle of black ichor, leaving only her twin blades behind. She retrieved them, wiping the corrosive fluid on a dead monk's robe. Lord Takahashi was beyond saving, the ritual mark on his chest now glowing with the same crimson light Kagemi had described. Whatever magic the Isaku clan had invoked, it was nearing completion. She searched the advisor's body, finding a scroll tucked into his robes, orders from Lord Goda detailing security arrangements, and a meeting set for dawn. If the doppelgangers planned to strike at Goda himself, that would be the moment. Dawn was only a few hours away. Ayame pocketed the scroll and set out for the castle, hoping Rikimaru had discovered similar truths. The fate of Lord Goda and the Azuma clan itself hung in the balance. Rikimaru moved through the forest like a ghost, each step silent despite his haste. Mount Kurama loomed ahead, its peak obscured by low clouds that threatened rain. A disturbance in the forest's natural rhythm alerted him. Someone approaching fast, moving with a ninja's skill through the treetops. Rikimaru melted into the shadow of a massive cedar, one hand on the hilt of Izayoi. The figure landed in the clearing ahead, and Rikimaru's breath caught. It was himself, Or rather, something wearing his likeness with uncanny precision. The doppelganger carried a blade identical to the Izayoi, its clothing mirroring his own. Even the way it moved, the same measured, efficient steps, was a perfect reflection. But something was wrong. The imposter's clothing was spattered with fresh blood, and it moved with a satisfied, predatory confidence. The creature paused, its head tilting slightly, as if sensing something. "I know you're there. We share the same senses after all." Rikimaru stepped from the shadows, blade drawn. "What are you?" The doppelganger turned, its face, his face, twisting into a smile that Rikimaru himself rarely wore. "I am what Lord Isaku required, a perfect weapon with your skills, but without your inconvenient loyalty to Goda." "You're an abomination," Rikimaru spat. "Created through blood magic and foreign rituals. Created through necessity and vision," the creature corrected. "Lord Isaku understands what you do not, that true power requires sacrifice. The old ways of honor and service are dying. The future belongs to those willing to embrace new knowledge, new magics." Rain began to fall, light droplets that quickly intensified into a downpour. The two figures stood facing each other in the clearing, mirror images in the gathering storm. "Lord Takahashi?" Rikimaru asked, though he already knew the answer. "Completed the ritual with his death." The doppelganger's smile widened. "His heart now powers my permanent existence in this realm, just as the hearts of the other advisors anchor my brethren." "Brethren? Did you think we were limited to merely copying you and the girl?" The creature laughed. "Lord Isaku's ambitions are greater. 4 shadow assassins now exist, each bound to his will through the ritual. By dawn, Lord Goda will fall, and the Azuma clan will be held responsible for the destruction of his entire ruling council." Rikimaru attacked without warning, Izayoi singing through the rain. The doppelganger parried with equal speed, their blades meeting in a cascade of sparks. The clash of magic against magic, the real Izayoi against its shadow copy, sent a shockwave through the clearing that bent the surrounding trees. They broke apart, circling each other. Every technique he attempted, his double countered perfectly. Every feint was anticipated, every strike met with an identical defense. "You cannot defeat yourself," the creature taunted. "I have your lifetime of training without your hesitation or moral constraints." Rikimaru narrowed his eyes, studying the imposter's movements. There was something off, a slight rigidity, a lack of adaptability. It fought exactly as he would, but without the capacity for spontaneous change. He shifted tactics, abandoning the Azuma style entirely. Instead, he attacked with moves learned from observing enemies, crude but unpredictable techniques that no true Azuma ninja would employ. His double faltered momentarily, surprised by the uncharacteristic approach. Rikimaru pressed his advantage, driving the creature back with a barrage of unorthodox strikes. The shadow copy adjusted quickly, but that brief window of confusion confirmed his theory. It could only replicate what it knew, not truly improvise. Lightning split the sky, illuminating their deadly dance. The doppelganger leapt onto a fallen log, its blade weaving complex patterns in the air. "Your resistance is futile," it said. "Even if you destroy me, the others will complete our mission. Lord Goda dies at dawn." "Others? How many of you are there?" Rikimaru demanded, circling cautiously. 4 shadows for 4 sacrifices. Perfect symmetry. The creature's eyes gleamed unnaturally in the darkness. Each bound to this world through ritual death, each capable of replacing its original. Rikimaru attacked again, this time incorporating techniques he'd observed from Ayame. Quick, fluid movements that contrasted with his usual precision strikes. The doppelganger struggled to adapt, its movements becoming jerky and uncoordinated. Taking advantage of the confusion, he delivered a powerful kick to the creature's chest, sending it crashing into a tree. Before it could recover, he thrust Izayoi forward, impaling his sinister double against the trunk. The creature gasped, black fluid seeping from the wound. Its features began to distort, the perfect copy of Rikimaru's face melting into something inhuman. "Kill me if you wish," it hissed, voice warping. "The shadow vessels will." Rikimaru twisted the blade, and the doppelganger's words dissolved into an inhuman shriek. Its body convulsed, then collapsed into a puddle of black ichor that sizzled in the rain. He cleaned his blade on wet leaves, his mind racing. 4 shadows for 4 sacrifices. Ayame's double must be among them, but who were the other 2? And if the ritual was already complete, what was planned for dawn? The answer came in a flash of insight. Lord Goda. The shadow assassins would strike at the Lord himself, completing the Isaku clan's coup, and with the Azuma blamed for the murders, there would be no one left to protect Goda. Rikimaru turned toward the castle, moving with renewed urgency. He needed to find Ayame and save Lord Goda. The storm had intensified by the time Ayame reached the outer walls of Lord Goda's castle. Rain lashed against stone and wood, providing cover for her approach. Guards huddled in sheltered positions, more concerned with staying dry than maintaining vigilance. She scaled the wall at its southwestern corner, dropping silently into the garden beyond. The area was deserted, the usual night patrols having retreated to covered walkways. As she moved toward the main keep, a flicker of movement caught her eye. A grey shape sliding between buildings with familiar grace. "Rikimaru," she whispered, relief washing over her. She signaled to him with a subtle hand gesture used only by the Azuma. He approached cautiously, water streaming from his sodden clothing. "You're alive." "Barely. I encountered my double at Mount Kurama." Her face darkened. "Lord Takahashi is dead. The ritual is complete." "I know. I met my own shadow on the forest path," Rikimaru replied. It spoke of 4 shadows created through 4 sacrifices. "The charm I found mentioned binding rituals," Ayame said. "Each advisor's death anchors a shadow assassin to this world. But if there are 4 shadows, and only 2 of us..." "Lord Isaku has created other vessels," he finished, "possibly copies of other ninjas." A sudden crash from the direction of the barracks interrupted them. Shouts rose above the storm, guards calling for assistance, the clash of steel against steel. "A diversion," Rikimaru said grimly. the beginning of the main assault. Ayame unsheathed her blades. The shadow assassins will strike at Lord Goda before dawn. We need to reach him first. They moved together through the castle grounds, avoiding the chaos spreading through the barracks. Guards ran past, oblivious to the two Azuma ninjas slipping through the shadows beside them. As they neared the main keep, Rikimaru halted suddenly, pulling Ayame into a recessed doorway. Wait! Two figures approached the keep from the opposite direction, one wearing the robes of a Goda advisor, the other dressed as a castle guard captain. They moved with unnatural synchronization, their steps too measured, too precise. The other two shadow vessels, Ayame whispered, disguised as trusted officials to get close to Lord Goda. They watched as the false advisor presented a document to the guards at the keep entrance. After a brief exchange, the guards admitted both figures inside. They'll have the layout of the castle, the patrol schedules, everything they need, Rikimaru said. We need to find another way in. Ayame pointed to a narrow window 3 stories up, Lord Goda's private meditation chamber. There, it's connected to his sleeping quarters by a hidden passage. They scaled the wall with practiced ease, rain making the stones slick beneath their fingers. Rikimaru reached the window first, carefully testing it. Locked from within, as expected. Ayame produced a thin wire tool from her sleeve, sliding it through the narrow gap between wood and frame. With a soft click, the lock disengaged, and they slipped inside. The meditation chamber was dark and still, illuminated only by occasional flashes of lightning. Scrolls and incense burners lined the walls, and a simple mat lay in the center for Lord Goda's morning rituals. Rikimaru moved to the far wall, pressing a hidden panel that slid back to reveal a narrow passage. This leads directly to his sleeping chamber. If we're lucky, we can reach him before. A scream echoed through the passage. A woman's voice raised in alarm, abruptly silenced. Lady Miku, Ayame said, naming Lord Goda's personal attendant. They rushed through the passage, emerging into Lord Goda's bedchamber. The scene before them froze them momentarily. Lady Miku lay crumpled by the door, a thin line of blood across her throat. Lord Goda stood backed against the far wall, sword drawn, facing the false advisor and guard captain. Lord Goda, Rikimaru called out. Those men are imposters. The two shadow vessels turned, their features shifting and melting in the dim light. Where the advisor had stood, a ninja in dark attire now faced them. The guard captain similarly transformed, shedding his disguise to reveal another shadow ninja. The Azuma arrive as predicted, the first shadow said, its voice hollow and echoing. Lord Isaku will be pleased. Lord Goda's eyes widened in confusion. What sorcery is this? Blood magic, my lord, Rikimaru explained, Izayoi glowing faintly in his hand. These creatures are shadow vessels created by the Isaku clan to frame the Azuma for the murders of your advisors. And now to complete our mission, the second shadow said, advancing on Goda. Your death will cement Lord Isaku's claim to these lands. Ayame moved first, her blades flashing as she intercepted the shadow ninja. Steel met steel in a shower of sparks, the creature matching her speed with unnatural precision. Rikimaru engaged the other shadow, recognizing immediately that this was no ordinary opponent. It fought with techniques from multiple schools, Azuma methods blended with styles from other ninja clans, even some samurai techniques. "These aren't simple copies," he called to Ayame as he parried a vicious slash. "They've been enhanced, given abilities beyond their originals." "Then we'll just have to be more creative than they are," she replied, ducking under her opponent's guard to score a cut across its midsection. Black fluid oozed from the wound, but the shadow showed no sign of pain. Lord Goda, recovering from his shock, moved to join the fight. "I will not die cowering in my chamber." "My lord, stay back," Rikimaru warned. "These creatures feed on death. Your blood would only strengthen them." The shadow facing Rikimaru laughed, a hollow, disturbing sound. "Clever Azuma, but it's already too late." It gestured toward the window, where the first hints of pre-dawn light were visible through the storm clouds. "The ritual concludes at sunrise. Our existence becomes permanent, and Lord Isaku's power multiplies tenfold." Lightning illuminated the chamber, casting grotesque shadows on the walls as the four ninjas fought in deadly silence. The shadow vessels pressed their attack with increasing ferocity, driving them back toward Lord Goda. "We can't defeat them conventionally," Rikimaru said, blocking a strike that would have severed his arm. "The ritual binds them to this world." Ayame's eyes widened in sudden understanding. "Then we need to break the binding." She reached into her sleeve, producing the charm she'd received earlier. "This contains part of the ritual binding. If we can disrupt the pattern..." The shadow she fought hissed in recognition. "The binding charm!" Both assassins abandoned their fights, converging on Ayame with terrifying speed. Rikimaru intercepted one, his blade cleaving through its shoulder in a spray of black ichor, but the second reached Ayame, knocking the charm from her hand. Lord Goda, seeing his opportunity, lunged forward and snatched up the fallen charm. "What must be done with this?" "Destroy it," she urged, fighting desperately to keep the assassins at bay. The one Rikimaru had wounded began to distort, its form becoming unstable. It shrieked in rage and pain, lashing out with inhuman strength that sent Rikimaru crashing into the wall. Lord Goda held the charm toward a nearby oil lamp, but before he could set it aflame, the second shadow broke away from Ayame and charged him. In the confusion, the wounded shadow seized Ayame by the throat, lifting her off the ground with one hand. "Your deaths will complete our ascension," it snarled, its features continuously shifting between human and something monstrous. "We will replace the Azuma as Lord Isaku's personal assassins." Rikimaru struggled to his feet, blood trickling from a cut on his forehead. Through blurred vision, he saw Lord Goda grappling with one shadow while Ayame fought for breath in the grasp of the other. In that moment, he understood what had to be done. Izayoi wasn't just a weapon. It was a blade forged specifically to combat demons and dark magic. Its edge glowed brighter now, resonating with the unnatural energies permeating the chamber. Gathering his remaining strength, he launched himself across the room, Izayoi held before him like a spear. The blade pierced through the shadow holding Ayame, its mystical edge slicing not just through the creature's physical form, but through the magical binding itself. A sound like tearing fabric filled the air, and the shadow vessel shrieked, its body convulsing as blue fire erupted from the wound. The magical backlash sent everyone staggering, and Ayame dropped to the floor, gasping for breath. The second shadow released Lord Goda, backing away in sudden fear. "Impossible," it spat. "The binding cannot be broken. My sword was forged to banish creatures like you from this world," Rikimaru said, advancing on the remaining shadow. "Return to the darkness that spawned you." Dawn light began to filter through the windows as the storm finally broke. The shadow vessel's form flickered and distorted in the growing illumination, caught between solidifying into permanent existence and being torn apart by the Izayoi's disruption of the ritual. "Lord Isaku will not be denied," it hissed, drawing a concealed weapon, a small glass orb similar to the one the robed man had used in the morgue. "If we cannot have victory, neither shall you." It hurled the orb toward Lord Goda, but Ayame intercepted it, slicing it in mid-air with one of her blades. The orb exploded in a flash of crimson energy. When the light faded, Ayame stood unharmed, but something had changed. The remnants of the orb had coalesced into a glowing symbol hovering in the air, the same mark carved into the advisors' bodies. "The binding seal," Goda whispered. The remaining shadow vessel lunged for the floating symbol, but Rikimaru was faster. His blade cleaved through both the shadow and the seal in a single strike, releasing a shockwave of power that shattered every window in the chamber. The shadow assassin dissolved into nothingness, its final scream fading into the dawn. The binding seal shattered like glass, each fragment burning away to ash before it reached the floor. Silence fell over the chamber, broken only by their ragged breathing. Outside, the first true rays of sunlight broke through the dissipating storm clouds. "It's over," Ayame breathed, sheathing her blades. Lord Goda looked between his two loyal ninjas, his expression grim but grateful. "Not quite over. Lord Isaku must answer for this treachery, and for the deaths of my advisors." Rikimaru nodded in agreement. "The Azuma stand ready to serve justice, my lord." "As they always have," Lord Goda acknowledged. "I owe you both an apology for doubting your loyalty." "There is no need," Rikimaru replied. "Doubt is the shadow that makes certainty possible." As guards finally arrived at the chamber door, alerted by the commotion, Ayame glanced at Rikimaru. Their work was far from finished. Lord Isaku remained at large, his fortress well guarded, his dark knowledge still a threat. But for now, dawn had come, and the shadows had retreated. That would have to be enough. Cherry blossoms drifted on the spring breeze, their pale petals spiraling down across the courtyard where Lord Goda stood before his assembled court. The ceremony had drawn nobles from across the province, their colourful silks creating a tapestry of wealth and power beneath the clear blue sky. Rikimaru and Ayame observed from the shadows of a nearby pavilion, positioned where they could survey both the ceremony and any potential threats. Though invited to stand among the honoured guests, they had politely declined. The shadows were their natural domain. 4 new advisors, Ayame murmured, watching as the men knelt before Lord Goda. "Each one vetted personally by both of us." Rikimaru nodded, his expression unreadable as always. "And each instrumental in tracking down Lord Isaku's network." Lord Goda's voice carried across the courtyard as he addressed the assembly. These 4 men have proven their loyalty, not just through words, but through actions. When Lord Isaku and his foreign conspirators threatened our lands with dark sorcery, they risked their lives to uncover the truth. The first advisor, a battle-scarred veteran who had led the final assault on Isaku's mountain fortress, bowed his head as Lord Goda placed the ceremonial seal of office around his neck. "Did you see Isaku's body yourself?" Rikimaru asked quietly. Ayame's eyes remained fixed on the ceremony. "Yes," committed seppuku in his private chamber as our forces breached the outer walls. His Western allies were captured attempting to flee by sea. A fitting end. He feared Lord Goda's justice, or wished to deny us information, Ayame replied. The ritual scrolls were burned, and the foreign sorcerer was beheaded. We may never know the full extent of their plans. The second and third advisors received their seals, each man solemnly accepting the weight of responsibility that came with them. The crowd murmured appreciatively. These were men of reputation, known for their wisdom and integrity. "It's over then," Rikimaru said, though something in his tone suggested doubt. Ayame caught it immediately. "You don't believe Isaku is truly dead?" Rikimaru's eyes narrowed slightly. A man who mastered the art of creating perfect doppelgängers would be a fool not to create one of himself. The body bore his family crest tattoo. The castle staff confirmed his identity, as did the castle staff who admitted our shadow doubles into Lord Goda's chambers, Rikimaru reminded her. The fourth advisor, youngest of the group, a scholar who had decoded the foreign writing in the ritual scrolls, knelt before Lord Goda. As the final seal was placed around his neck, polite applause rippled through the assembly. "If you're right," Ayame said softly, "then where is the real Isaku?" "That," Rikimaru replied, "is what troubles me." Lord Goda concluded the ceremony with a pledge of prosperity and peace. As the court began to disperse, his eyes briefly met those of his 2 shadow warriors. A slight nod, acknowledgement of their vigilance, their sacrifice. "The shadow vessels are gone," Ayame said, as if reassuring herself. "We destroyed the binding ritual." "That ritual," Rikimaru corrected. "There may be others." Cherry blossoms continued to fall, the beautiful petals a stark contrast to the uneasy look that passed between the duo. They acknowledged the peace gained today, but understood that it was temporary, and new threats always awaited in the shadows.